The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings, I'm Admiral Swart, Commanding Officer, USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for Stardate negative 269722.1. I am the Admiral in question, and it looks like I am having an audio issue on Discord. Let me correct that quickly. Audio inputs. There we go. That should resolve it. That looks better. Okay, fantastic. All right, apologies for that momentary disruption. All right, so we are here today to talk about the work ethic of a Starfleet officer. But before we get into those kinds of details, we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do. Firstly, these sessions are streamed every Tuesday at 12:30, which is the middle of the day on a Tuesday. Is not the most convenient time for everybody, but if you are an active duty member of the Dauntless crew, you are welcome to join us here in the screening room on the Dauntless Discord. I can monitor the chat for any questions or comments that might come through, and we can just socialize while we're doing it. If you are here in the screening room during one of these sessions, please make sure that you drop any kind of message. Excuse me, my non-humanoid companion is being a pest. Please make sure that you drop any kind of comment or question in the screening room or just wave hi or whatever so that we can do a roll call after the fact. I'll try to remember to do a shout out during the course of the session on the video feed to those who have joined us. But just in case I'm not able to go back and review that portion of the video later, we need to have a text-based roll call, and that happens in the chat. So please wave hi, say hello, even if you don't have anything specific to contribute, so that I can record your attendance for the mission report afterwards. That is the first thing. Second thing is, if you are not an active duty member of the crew, you're welcome to join us on YouTube. These are also streamed there. So you are welcome to post any comments or questions you have in the live stream there as well. I might be able to see that. Sometimes those questions come through. Hopefully I'll be able to address anything that does come through from that venue. And thirdly, if you are in the Discord chat and you have a question directed at me, please make sure that you @tag me in the chat. There's a lot of conversation happening during the recordings of these videos, which is fantastic, and I encourage it. But when I get to the Q&A section at the end, I need to be able to visually identify the questions that are aimed at me. So please remember to @tag me so that I can find those questions more easily when the time comes. All right, so let us get to the topic of today's video. And today we're going to be talking about the work ethic of a Starfleet officer. But what does any of that stuff mean? What is a Starfleet officer? Who are we? Why are we here? Why am I dressed like this? What's going on? So, first of all, we are from the USS Dauntless. What is the USS Dauntless? It's a Star Trek fan club based in Cape Town, South Africa. Star Trek fan club is not the most precise term, but it's fine. It's close enough. It'll get you there. If you've got a picture in your head of what a Star Trek fan club is, it covers what we are, but we are a lot more than just that. We are a Starfleet style club, complete with ranks, titles, and uniforms, which means that this outfit that I'm wearing now isn't just a costume, it's a uniform that represents my status within the organization, both within the USS Dauntless and within our parent organization, Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated. I carry a rank that I've earned through doing real life stuff over time, over many years, and the color of my uniform here represents the position to which I am assigned, which is commanding officer. So all of these things about me are accurate representations of who I am within the context of the Dauntless and Starfleet International. So it's not a costume, it's a uniform, and everybody else aboard has an equivalent set of qualifications. That is a title and a rank and a status within the organization. Starfleet International is the biggest Star Trek fan club in the world, and being one of their chapters, which is the Dauntless is a chapter of Starfleet International, connects us to hundreds of other starships and thousands of other members across the world. Starship is a metaphor that Starfleet International uses to describe their chapters. Each one is a metaphorical starship. This starship, the image at the top of the page here, is the USS Dauntless, but that is a metaphor. It's fictional. That aspect of it is not real. What is real is us, the crew. That is what the starship is. So we are an ideological construct that binds us together towards a common purpose and a common goal and a common mission. Now, what is that mission? What is it that we're here to do? And that is to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of humankind to the people of Africa and the Middle East. And there's a lot to unpack there as well, but let's go through that as quickly as we can. Who is Gene Roddenberry? He's this guy. He is the guy who invented Star Trek. He's not the only person who's ever worked on Star Trek, but he's the guy who got the ball rolling. It was his brainchild back in the 60s. He started this whole thing. And it is Star Trek that has our particular interest. We have modeled our organization structurally and thematically on the fictional Starfleet as depicted in Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek, and that is where we draw our inspiration. Inspiration for what? Well, because Star Trek depicted a positive future for humankind, a world in which most of the problems that we face today, things like crime, poverty, disease, and war, have been largely, if not entirely, eliminated through a variety of means: economic, social, political, technological, scientific progress. And what we as Starfleet officers are trying to accomplish is to help to move our world closer to that optimistic future. Obviously, we wouldn't want it, or it wouldn't be possible to make our future look exactly like the fictional Star Trek, because there are lots of purely fictional elements included in that fictional narrative, like Vulcans and Klingons. Those are not real, they're imaginary. But the concept of that idyllic future, that utopian society that Gene Roddenberry envisioned, we hope to try and move the world in that direction through real world action today, here in our actual day-to-day lives. And part of the way we do that is by opening other people's eyes to the inspirational message that Star Trek has. So we are trying to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of humankind to the people. Why have Africa and the Middle East? Well, because Starfleet International is a global organization, but in order to make things more manageable from an administrative point of view, they have divided the world's surface up into 20 different geographic regions. And one of those, Region 8, consists of Africa and the Middle East. And that is where we're based, here in Cape Town, South Africa. So Africa and the Middle East is Region 8, which is where we are. Now, this broader mission is clarified in a number of standing orders of varying importance. Number one being to promote Star Trek to our friends, families, and the people around us. Number two is to encourage initiatives to help bring about the future envisioned in Star Trek, and so on. And we're going to be talking a fair amount about the various different manifestations and qualifications and instantiations of these various different standing orders in the world during today's talk. But I'm not going to be very reliant on these slides today, so I'm just going to go back to here, so it's just us again. So I did a briefing video some time ago now about the core values of a Starfleet officer. And there are three primary principal pillars that I think every Starfleet officer, at least those on the Dauntless, and I think it applies to Starfleet officers elsewhere as well. The three primary pillars of what a Starfleet officer should embody are courage, determination, and a love for Star Trek. The love for Star Trek seems obvious because that's why we're here, but the love for Star Trek is also something that we need to nurture and foster both in ourselves and in other people. But the other two, courage and determination, those are the tricky ones. Those can be quite difficult to maintain over time. And there are a number of what I would describe as perhaps secondary values that we covered in our values discussion briefing some time ago, which are not any less important, but they're perhaps more specific. And those are as follows. We've got that our first duty is to the truth. So that is that Starfleet officers are expected to be honest and forthright in all their actions and in their dealing with other people. Second one is that my word is my bond. If I have committed to doing something, you can hold me to that commitment as a Starfleet officer, because Starfleet officers are by nature reliable. The next is trust but verify. We should be able to trust our fellow Starfleet officers when they tell us that something is a fact, but that doesn't mean that our fellow Starfleet officers are incapable of error. So we need to make sure that what they're saying is accurate, even though we can trust that they're not trying to be deceptive. Next, we have praise in public and critique in private. This is about fostering a positive work environment. So when you want to, not only a working environment, but in any kind of social environment, really. When you have something good to say it so that everybody can hear it. If you have something that's not so good to say it so that only the person who needs to hear it has to hear it. Then the next one is your idea, your project. It's tempting to be full of big ideas that create a lot of work for other people, but that's not how we do things here. Here, if you have an idea, it's your project. You own it, and you're responsible for seeing it through to completion. You're welcome to recruit other people to assist you with your project, but the project belongs to you if it's your idea. And the next is the right to whine, which is that you are welcome to complain, again, critiquing in private. But in order to earn the right to complain, you need to have put in the work yourself already. So unless you are rolling up your sleeves and doing what you can to assist, complaining doesn't really help. All right, so those are the three core and the 6 secondary values of a Starfleet officer as I see them. And it really involves all of these when we talk about the work ethic of a Starfleet officer. So what is a work ethic? Work ethic describes a person's approach to how they handle work and responsibility. Things that you are responsible for doing, making sure that you do them in a timeous way, living up to your expectations for yourself and other people's expectations of you, and how you handle the social environment surrounding that work. There's no clear definition, which is why it sounds a little bit waffly, but that's kind of what we're talking about here. So let's talk about the foundation of a work ethic. What is it that we need in order to make sure that we are able to do, physically capable of performing the work, of exercising the commitments that we have made? And that brings us to the principle of mission readiness, which is something that I talk about quite often in these briefing videos. What is mission readiness? It's about making sure that you as a person are the best possible version of yourself, both, well, not both, but in terms of physical readiness, as in making your body as physically strong as possible, strong, resilient, keeping healthy, being fit and prepared for any physical duty, as well as, you know, the obvious benefits of exercise, strengthening your heart, improving cognitive function and reducing the risk of chronic illness. All those kinds of things relate to the physical side of mission readiness. So we want to make sure that we are good to go physically whenever called upon to perform a particular task. That's an important aspect of the Starfleet work ethic. Then there's the mental readiness side of work, and that is being cognitively prepared to do whatever tasks we are called upon to do. And when I say we're being called upon, in the Starfleet context, typically that's not other people asking you to do a thing. That is you stepping up and taking responsibility for a project that you have undertaken. So that is that idea that you had that is now your project, that's you. You are setting the expectations for yourself that other people would then hold you to. So mental readiness involves obtaining and cultivating skills within yourself so that you have the necessary mental faculties to do the work that you have committed to doing. Even if that work is simply showing up at a mission, that you need to have the necessary mental skills in order to accomplish that. You need to be resilient enough and resourceful enough in order to make that happen. Well, why would you need to be resourceful to get to a mission? Well, here's an example. Let's say you're in a situation where your transport situation has been eradicated. You no longer have a vehicle because it's in for repairs. All right. And now there's a mission that you need to get to. You need to be nimble enough to be able to arrange your life so that you can get physically to that mission. What does that look like? It could be as simple as negotiating with your fellow team members that one of them offer you a ride, or perhaps it's securing an Uber, perhaps it's learning about public transport so that you can get there on your own steam. There are a number of different options available to you in order for you to get to the mission physically. But it's up to you, your mental resilience and willingness to put in the work to make sure that those things happen. Even if you're not able to simply climb in your car and drive, then making sure that you have access to relevant resources to do the thing. And that's the simplest possible task, which is showing up for a mission. When it comes to actually doing real work, again, it's about your skills, your resilience, your adaptability, and your resourcefulness, which are skills that you need to cultivate within yourself as a Starfleet officer. And it's not that you're out in the cold. You are not leaving you to dry and all this kind of thing. We are here as a community to support each other in building up each other's skills. So our linguistics challenge, for example, is a good instance of how we try to encourage each other to learn new things. We've got a reading challenge, so we can help each other do that. And we are also a resource for each other when it comes to sharing information. I was in a very similar situation not that long ago where I was in a transport bind and I needed to get around. So I was able to consult with the members of my team who were able to offer me useful advice on how to get around using the public transport system that I hadn't used before in the particular part of the world that I live in. Now, that is the kind of support that I'm talking about, and being able to upskill myself by leveraging that relationship with the rest of my crew. The next category there is emotional readiness. So this sounds like it's the same as mental readiness, but it's really not. Emotional readiness deals with resilience and courage specifically when it comes to building up the ability to embark on the thing that you need to do, especially if you're plagued with, as many people are, things that want to hold you back, emotionally speaking. So things like anxiety or depression can get in your way and can become an obstacle to being the best possible Starfleet officer you can be. But there are things that you can do. There are interventions that you can undertake in order to improve your resilience to that kind of thing, whether it's getting out, getting some exercise, getting some sunshine, speaking to a professional, getting on medication, whatever it is that you need to do in order to manage your emotional state. It is your responsibility to do that. And that is part of the Starfleet work ethic, is making sure that you are ready to do the work when it arrives. And that in itself can be a fair amount of work. And it's work that we are all called upon to do on ourselves all the time. So mission readiness, as I said, I've addressed mission readiness ad nauseum in a lot of these briefing videos in the past. So if you'd like to learn more about mission readiness, there was the original mission readiness video that I did back in March, I think it was. And then I drilled down into each of those three categories: physical, mental, and emotional readiness, in separate briefing videos over the following months. And most recently, I did one on the equipment side of mission readiness, which I haven't even listed here, which I think is still important, but perhaps less so from a values point of view. And all of this stuff, all of this work prepares you for um, the feedback mechanism when it comes to a work ethic, and that is when it comes to responsibility and accountability. So we as Starfleet officers have a duty to the mission. That's why we're here. That's why we signed up. That mission of that Gene Roddenberry gave us, or at least that we have, to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of humankind to the people of Africa and the Middle East, as well as the various qualifying standing orders, and also to the individual discrete missions that we as a group of people undertake, whether that's a movie night or a blood donation mission or anything like that. Our duty to the mission is why we're here. That's why we've opted into this organization, and that's why we are participating in this institution. It's for the sake of the mission. So our duty is to the mission, and as Starfleet officers, we are dedicated to that duty. Secondary to that probably is the importance of following protocols. So what do I mean by protocols? So these are the rules and standards and practices that we've set up around our various ways of doing things. And protocols matter not just because we are rules-oriented people and people like to follow rules, but because the protocols, generally speaking, have been set up with a specific goal in mind. One such protocol, for example, would be reporting and communication. So whenever somebody does something like attend an away mission, it's important that that event having happened is reported back on, so that everybody who needs to know that that happened knows that it happened. If there's no report, it's almost as if that never happened. What does that report need to look like? It might be as simple as a text-based communication from the mission commander to the executive officer saying, so-and-so attended the mission, and perhaps a photograph of that person at the mission wearing their uniform as evidence then that all of that happened. So that brings us back to trust but verify. So we trust that you were there, but we need to verify that you were in fact there in case somebody made an error. And how do we verify that? We look at the photograph as we see your face and we see your uniform at the time and place that the mission occurred. So that's what reporting is for, and that's why protocols matter. We want to make sure that people are respected in their positions. When any of us has signed up for a duty station, which is a specific role aboard the starship in which we have an assigned set of duties, it doesn't mean that other people are not able to contribute in the specific area that you have taken responsibility for. But if they are contributing in the area that kind of belongs to you, that's your backyard, and they're not communicating with you about it, they're not following the proper social protocols around that kind of thing, that can come across as being disrespectful to you, and you wouldn't want that to happen. And really, they probably wouldn't want that to happen either if they thought that through. So that's why we have those kinds of protocols in place to make sure that things happen the correct way, they are happening consistently, and that no steps are being left out. Let's see, what else did I need to talk about in this area? Communication. So communication, I mentioned that when it comes to reporting, but communication in general is key to managing that kind of responsibility and accountability. When you have taken responsibility for a specific task or a given project, it's vitally important that everyone around you, in all the relevant stakeholders, but also your team members and crew members, know what is going on with that project so that they can understand how they fit into the whole scheme of things. Now, this project could be something as simple as an away mission. So again, our blood donation mission is a good example, and this is something that we do every couple of months. It's our most important mission. It's our only priority one mission that we engage in on a regular basis. Priority one means that it is mandatory for all active duty personnel to attend. And the way it's handled is that each of our away teams, an away team is a group of members in a specific geographic location, typically in a city. So we have members in a number of cities around Africa, and in even one city in the United States. Each of those groups constitutes an away team. And when we have the blood donation mission, which is what we call a multi-vector away mission, each of those teams goes out and performs the mission on their own together. So different teams performing the same mission at the same time, or within a reasonable margin of error, performing the same mission at the same time. For something like that, the coordination and communication is essential. We can't afford to slip on the communication when it comes to that kind of thing. So what do I mean by that? If you are an away team leader in a given city, let's say you are, so what is the away team leader? Away team leader is typically the highest ranking crew member in that sector, in that city. You are therefore, by default, the away team leader. It is your responsibility to coordinate with the rest of your team to make sure that you have all agreed on where and when you'll be meeting up for the mission, because a city's a large place. There are lots of potential places to go and donate blood, and there's a 24-hour window in which you might be doing that. So it's important to make sure that everybody in the team is aware of where you're going, what time you're going, and that kind of thing. And it's the away team leader's job to at least get the ball rolling on that, if not to make those decisions on behalf of everybody. Without constant communication with every member of the team, and that's bilateral communication that's happening in both ways, that team leader needs to be receiving feedback from every member of that team, it's going to be impossible to coordinate that kind of a mission. The team leader needs to reach out to every member of the team, and needs to hear back from every member of the team whether or not a given proposed location or time is going to be suitable for everybody. And when it comes to priority one missions, it's even more important, because if you are somehow physically incapable of attending the mission, your team leader needs to know that, or else they're going to be sitting waiting for you and expecting you to arrive. And also negative consequences ensue if you fail to let us know that you're not going to be coming. So that kind of communication is absolutely essential. And it matters all the way down the line. So that might be the most complicated communication system that we have when it comes to coordinating a multi-vector away mission. But any given mission, even this mission here, the briefing with the Admiral on a Tuesday, also requires a fair amount of, sorry, my house is making noises. Even something like this requires a fair amount of coordination and communication that needs to be handled appropriately. Even if it's not very much, it still needs to be done correctly. And that brings us to the consequences for negligence. So what does negligence constitute? What constitutes negligence in this kind of a context? Well, it could be as simple as not following through on a commitment that you've made. Now, if it's your project, if you've promised everybody that you're going to be working on something and you've just run out of time or forgotten about it, or lost the capacity to continue with the project, that in itself is not negligence, right? That as long as you're able to communicate to the people around you that, look, this work is not going to be done on time. It's I haven't been able to finish this. It took longer than I expected. I incorrectly spec the scope of the project or whatever it is. That is perfectly acceptable, because then the people around you who are expecting and waiting for that work to be done can adjust accordingly. But if you go off into obscurity and we don't hear anything for you for weeks, and then the deadline has been and gone for when that work was expected and nothing has happened, that's when it starts to become unfortunate, because now we were relying on that piece of work to happen and it hasn't happened. Typically, we're not going to have a lot of negative feedback for a situation like that, especially if it's project work, if it's day-to-day tasks, because there are redundancies built into our command structure. So if one person isn't able to do a piece of work that they've committed to doing, either we just live without that work, or that work will then get passed on to the next person in the chain of command, who can then fill in for that person, or perhaps find somebody else to do the work. It's much, much better if we know in advance that that work is not going to be done, so that we have time to redistribute that task to somebody else before the deadline. But even if the deadline comes and goes, we can there are redundancies built into the system to manage that. So it's not the end of the world, but it's not going to do much for your reputation as a Starfleet officer if you leave us hanging for that kind of thing. But when it does come to negative consequences is when we're talking again about those priority 1 missions. Now, they're priority 1 because they have life or death consequences. Blood donation missions are our most important mission because they are actually involved in saving people's lives. What does that mean? Am I not being hyperbolic here? No, I'm not. So when you donate a unit of blood, that unit is split up into 3 different blood products, and which are then delivered to patients who are in life or death need. They need one of those 3 products in order to survive. And if they fail to get that product, they will die. Therefore, if you fail to donate that unit, the person who needed that unit may die because you failed to donate. If you're physically incapable of donating, which is about 1 in 4 people, then that's fine. It's still your job to come and assist the people who are donating on those missions. But if you can donate, it is your moral obligation to do so. And we expect you to join us with those donation missions every 9 weeks. Very, very important. And that is why we have a feedback mechanism built into the priority 1 mission, which is a I don't like the word punishment. That's not really how this works, but it's more like the word we use is reprimand. If you fail to report in for a priority 1 mission, which is that you don't attend the mission and you also don't let us know that you're not going to be attending the mission, that means that you have failed to report in. And for a priority 1 mission, that is a very bad thing. So you will receive a reprimand that goes against your record. It lasts for a period of 1 year. During that year, you are ineligible for any kind of advancement opportunity. So that means you cannot be reassigned to a different position, even if it's a standard position within the Dauntless. The only position you can be reassigned to if you have a reprimand on your record is to reserve. So in other words, you are downgrading from active duty to reserve status. You are ineligible for rank promotions, you're ineligible for commendations, and you're ineligible for awards. Now, if we're talking about awards and rank promotions that might be above the level of what the chapter commanding officer can offer, we can't stand in your way from achieving those. But what we can do is that when we are contacted by the issuing authority for a recommendation for you on the basis that you've been nominated for one of those awards or rank promotions, we will stipulate in that recommendation that we recommend that you not receive it because you have this reprimand on your record. And then it will be up to the issuing authority to decide what to do with that information. So very serious situation. We don't want anybody to have a reprimand on their record. We'd much rather all of us just be present at those missions. And if you absolutely cannot attend, if you are physically incapable of attending because you're in hospital or on a plane or something like that, and that it makes it impossible for you to be at a blood donation center during the mission time, then you need to let us know that that is going to happen. And if that situation catches you by surprise, if you're in, God forbid, a car accident on your way to the donor center or something like that, you need to let us know after the fact as soon as possible. Very, very important. So that is the consequences of negligence, and that is the worst possible consequence. And if you've been so negligent that you've managed to accumulate multiple of these these reprimands on your record that are concurrent, then we might have to take even further steps like reducing rank or something like that. And we really don't want to have to do that, but we will if we must. So we don't want to have to resort to negative consequences. If all of us are being attentive to our duties and making sure that we're doing what's expected of us and what we have committed to doing, following through on our commitments, then that's never necessary to do that stuff. That stuff only kicks in when people are letting themselves down and letting us down. And that's not an ideal situation. So another important aspect of the Starfleet work ethic, and I've hinted at this quite a lot already, is teamwork and collaboration. So we don't really want a situation where any one person is left out in the cold doing all of the work by themselves. And that is why, even in our list of duty stations, and I've recently done a series of videos looking at all the many duty stations across all of the different departments on board the Starship Dauntless. Even if you're in one of those duty stations, there is a fair amount of overlap and mutual dependency on any given task that you are asked to perform. So you're not expected to do all of the work yourself. You might be called upon to do your specific piece of the work. Let's say you are a communications operator in charge of our Facebook group. Your specific piece of the work in that case would be, if a piece of content comes up that needs to be distributed to the Facebook group, it's your job to post it in the Facebook group. That's your role. But you're not expected to do all of that from beginning to end. You don't have to generate that content. You don't have to format it. You don't have to curate it. You don't have to do approve it through command or any of that kind of stuff. You're just taking your piece of the work and implementing your part of it. You are part of a team that is deploying that content out to that group and various other content deployment platforms that are all working together. You are part of the team working together towards a common goal. And that's why we need to make sure that we foster and support respect for our teammates, because everybody on board is doing some work and we need to be respectful of the work that everybody else is doing. But that respect goes both ways. So if you want to engender respect from your teammates, or if you expect your teammates to respect you, you need to make sure that you are respectable by making sure that your end of the work is being kept up. Respect is mutual, and it's a balance that is constantly being maintained by each and every one of us every single day. And that also leads to an aspect, which is that we mustn't forget the importance of supporting roles. So there are whole departments aboard the Dauntless, specifically engineering, security, and operations, but to varying extents, other duty stations on board as well. Those three departments in particular form an entirely supporting role, which is to say that they do stuff that only helps other members of the Dauntless do their jobs. Operations are the internal coordination and logistics department. They are there to make sure that everybody has the information and resources they need to do their job. Engineering are here to manage and provision some of those resources, and security are there to make sure that everybody has the appropriate access level to the things that they need. Those are entirely supportive roles to make sure that everybody else on board is able to do the work that they do. That work is no less important than somebody who's on the front lines in, say, the medical or command department. Everybody's work is equally important, and we all are part of the same machine. So just because somebody is the face of a given project, let's say you're in communications department and you're putting out videos with your face on it, that's cool, that's great, that's one part of the project. But everybody else who enabled you to create that video by granting you access to the relevant data, by error checking the content that you've put out, by managing the platform that you're distributing it on, all of that kind of thing, all of that work is just as important as being the face of it. So we need to make sure that those support members are being, they are themselves being supported in their work, and that they are accorded the respect that they deserve. Another example of this is not in day-to-day ops, but in mission-specific ops, and that is the non-donors who are there to support us on blood donation missions. So again, I said that about 1 in 4 people are physically incapable of donating blood for a variety of reasons, typically health-related reasons. Maybe you've got some kind of condition, chronic condition that prevents you from donating blood or something like that. Those people are still expected to attend those priority 1 missions as support crew. And what kind of support is that? Well, it could be anything. It could be as simple as keeping the donors company while they're donating, or it could be taking photographs. It could be helping with the reports. It could be helping with transport. It could be buying a round of coffees. Anything that that might make the donors' mission more comfortable or more practical. The support crew are there to provide those kinds of services, and they are just as important for that mission, because although the blood donors are heroes, they shouldn't have to do it alone, and that support crew matters. In a different context, if you think about Batman, Batman is the one who's out there swinging between the buildings and riding around and fighting the Joker. But Batman would have a much more difficult time of it if he didn't have Alfred Pennyworth back in the Batcave helping him out over the comms. And that is what the non-donors are doing for the blood donors when we're on those priority 1 blood missions. So let me just recap a little bit about mission readiness and the importance of continuous improvements and personal growth. So in order to rise to the challenge of ensuring that we are doing the work that's expected of us, that we are expecting of ourselves, and allowing us to take on increasing amounts of responsibility in the future, we need to be constantly improving ourselves. So that's through lifelong learning, and that is to seek opportunities to learn and grow, whether it's learning a new language, whether it's reading a new piece of classic fiction, or whether that's gaining certification in some real world skill like first aid or firefighting or snake handling or something like that. Those are all very beneficial, and they help to expand your list of capabilities, and they make you a better Starfleet officer. And another way that we can improve ourselves is by seeking challenges, by taking on projects that we're perhaps not even 100% confident that we can take on. We don't necessarily know how to do it, but we know that if we trust ourselves and we trust our teams, then we know that we can figure out how it's done. I've got some ideas for some great projects that we can undertake that for when the team is ready, that we can seek to challenge ourselves with. And that is a particularly rewarding way of expanding your both mental and emotional mission readiness, is by taking on something that is challenging, something that's difficult, and achieving it. And then just when it comes to the day-to-day continuous improvement, that could be volunteering for a duty station. So we have multiple empty duty stations on board the Dauntless. There is work that's going on undone, or there is work that's being done by too few on behalf of too many. And if you have the capacity, or even if you need to challenge yourself to expand your capacity a little bit, I would strongly recommend and ask that you consider taking on one of the many empty duty stations on board. If you browse through the list, check through the videos that I posted a little while ago and see which duty stations are in existence, and you can see which ones are currently vacant, you can enter that induction process and rise to the challenge of taking on that responsibility. It doesn't mean that you're locked into doing only that work forever. You're still welcome to contribute to the rest of the crew in any other way that you see fit, but we need somebody to take on the responsibility of each one of those pieces of work that all of those duty stations are responsible for. And then there's the external manifestation of the Starfleet work ethic, and that is when it comes to public service. So this is a project, again, I've done a video in detail about the public service aspect of being a Starfleet officer, but so we'll just recap that here quickly. And that is that it's one of our standing orders to promote Star Trek and its values, and to encourage initiatives that help bring about the future envisioned in Star Trek. And how do we do that? And that is promoting the philosophical concept of let me help, which is I have capability, I have capacity, I have power in this situation, I have agency. Let me use that to alleviate your situation. What can I do to make your life better, to make your situation better? So that's one of the ways that manifests, obviously, is in our blood donation missions. If I have a little bit of surplus blood, then I can give that to somebody who might need it, or who will definitely need it. But also I have other capacity that I can share. I have skills, I have time that I can donate, and maybe that looks like volunteering for a cause. Perhaps it's as little as basic as volunteering at my weekly park run as a marshal. That definitely counts. Park run is an important initiative that helps people to maintain their physical fitness, and volunteering for that is definitely a worthwhile cause, and we would reward it here in the Dauntless accordingly. Or it could be something like working part-time or full-time in a volunteer position for another organization, a baby sanctuary, or something like that. I work at a place called Cheetah Outreach, where I put in a full day's work at least twice a week, working with the educational aspect of that cheetah conservation. And this is the kind of thing that we should all be doing as much as we can, within within reason, obviously, in order to make the world a better place, a little piece at a time. And that is how we as individual Starfleet members are able to contribute to that mission of bringing the world closer to that future envisioned by Gene Roddenberry. Community service is very important, and that we don't have a lot of missions on the Dauntless centered around community service, but we strongly recommend that each of us engage in some, at least some, on our own time and in our own capacity whenever we possibly can. All right, I think that's enough of that stuff. Let me just wrap up what we've talked about here. So it's very important as a Starfleet officer to have a strong work ethic. I mean, in fact, I would go so far as to say that having a strong work ethic is almost synonymous with being a Starfleet officer. And that is the only way that we can work to fulfill the mission of the USS Dauntless. I would like to encourage everybody to actively contribute both to the Dauntless, either as a standard duty volunteer or preferably as a duty station volunteer, but then also in making sure that you participate up to your capacity in every other way possible, and especially non-negotiably, frankly, with priority 1 missions, because that is how we uphold the values of being a Starfleet officer. I also remind you that the work ethic of a Starfleet officer is built on the foundation of responsibility, of dedication, which is the courage to keep doing a thing over and over again, with scant or no reward, but because it's important. Continuous improvement, and that's mission readiness, and service to others, making sure that we are doing what we can to make life better for the people around us. And by adopting these values, we as Starfleet officers can effectively represent the USS Dauntless and contribute to our success collectively. All right, let's see what comments I've got. Okay, let's see. First, I'd like to say a quick shout out to everybody who's here. We've got Master Chief Kotzer, we've got Captain Van Krenen, Master Chief Newton, we've got Apprentice Carter, and Lieutenant Commander Shimali. First comment there was from our EMH, and that was not helpful because our EMH is an AI and doesn't really know what a webinar is. Second comment here is from Captain Van Krenen, letting me know that there's no sound on Discord. I resolved that when the time came, and I'm not seeing any other ads. So that's fantastic. We don't have any other questions. I've addressed everything. That is amazing. All right. Well, in that case, I'd like to sum up with my concluding statement, which is to say that a strong work ethic builds a solid foundation for success in all aspects of life and aboard the Dauntless. It's the warp drive to achieving our mission and building a strong, thriving community. Thank you. That is all for today. You are dismissed. Swart out.